Hello and welcome inside the Parc Fermé F1 podcast number 692. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here. Of course I've asked you here to help.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to dust off the actual employee annual review and use it to rate the season so far. You're thinking, what? Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. I'll get into that. Just bear with me. I got to get the intros out of the way before covering any of that. I have to introduce my podcast partners in crime. The first one up is the lovely, the redoubtable
Grace!
Grace, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm just, living the dream. Living the dream, Grace.
There you go. I'm trying to not get behind on partial seasons of all my sports. So
That's good.
because usually by July I'm like, oh, I don't know, stuff happened. But
Yeah, I don't know. There was
trying to-
racing involved. People won. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm trying to stay on top of it.
It's exactly how I... Hey, Grace and I are joined tonight by none other...
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad. He's beautiful. He's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charsley, the International.
It's Paul Charsley, the International.
Hi,
How you
everybody.
doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Yes. Today we're going to look through the rectangle window.
Ooh, what's in that rectangle?
We'll find out later on, kids.
Oh, Paul, you said my gain was a little high, right?
A little bit.
Check 1 2. Check microphone 1 2.
I wasn't playing Tetris. I was texting you
Okay.
incognito, but now it's uncognito.
Now everybody knows.
Yeah, now everybody knows. Okay.
They know
well,
how we work.
All right, apologies. Is this any better, Paul?
It is for me, Grace.
Sure,
Okay,
sounds great.
good.
Yeah,
All
I
right,
can't
so-
hear you at all. It's perfect.
Good, perfect. That's exactly how I wanted this to work.
Oh my God. Ooh, it shows off the rails already.
That's
Oh my
right.
gosh. Yes. Well, I'll sit back and you guys go ahead.
Yep.
Yes. Well, apologies for the intro if I distorted a little bit. I was having some mic issues, believe it or not, with the famed Shure SM7B, and I had to revert back to another Shure. So hopefully that's a little better. Okay. So tonight, what are we going to do tonight? Okay. So if you've ever worked for someone, you've undoubtedly had an employee review.
We have him here on the podcast.
We do every
Quarterly.
year.
Todd
You
hauls us
leave
in.
about 10 p.m.
year. Right.
Todd hauls us in by our ears and lets us know what we're
Right.
doing.
And
Right
so I'm
on.
like with Grace. All right, Grace, some questions.
Yeah.
And I document
Do you
it
think you
again.
could read the notes before you get to the show? Would that kill you? Could you
I
do a
always
little
give Paul a
preparation?
1 rating on that. He just
Reason we've never had a raise.
that's
Right.
it. You've never
to
got
prepare.
an employee review with anything over a 3. Yeah. So
Average,
anyway,
good.
if you've worked for anyone, you know that there are employee reviews, annual employee reviews, and that's usually ranked on a 1 to 5 scale. 5 being exceptional, 1 being unsatisfactory. But however, these days, a lot of corporations are getting away from this sort of annual review, and they're doing them more in real time, monthly, in real time, whether it's an employee review like a 360 type of peer review or some other creative elements. I'm not going to go into all of them now, but point being is that companies find that doing this type of review and this immediacy to feedback during the year, due to how quick the markets change and the economy changes, is more effective for them. So I thought, since these days people are moving away from that, I thought that this might work pretty well. And, the economy is changing. With COVID here, the season had to change pretty drastically. And you know what Ross Braun says?
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
That's exactly what Ross Braun
Ross
says.
Braun sounds so young.
He does. He does. He takes a lot of vitamins, or as Paul might call them, vitamins.
That's
would.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So anyway, to those ends, we thought we would come up with our own employee sort of annual review of the first 3 races of the season. Now, that's a numerical format. 1, I said, is unsatisfactory. 5 equals exceptional. We won't rate every team and driver, but for each category, we'll offer a few names and some ratings that kind of caught our eye during the first 3 races. So in that vein, this then is the 2020 so far, I guess you could say F1 review, team driver F1 as a whole review, employment review. All right. Is everyone with me? Paul, are you with me?
Yeah, sure. I've read the notes.
Well, that's
And
good.
printed
I'm
them
gonna
out.
have to. I'm gonna follow along. Let's hope I don't screw it up this time.
Say some insightful
No,
stuff.
you're not going to screw it up. You know what Paul always says.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
That's it. That's what Paul says.
I do. I always say it.
Always.
I'm
Every day.
training my son to be a street driver. I tell him that all the time.
All the time. He's
good.
always got to go for a gap, man.
Yeah.
You get
That's
to the
right.
street light, you got to go for the gap.
Yep, go
right.
for the gap. You got to run those people out. If they want to stay on the outside of you, man, just let them crash.
That's it. You just got to run them out wide.
That's right.
That's how Grace does it.
Yeah.
I've driven
In
behind
between
Grace.
jumps.
Yeah, I know how
drive
Grace
fast on the.
drives.
They drive fast on the Beltway now, so
Yeah.
ready.
So yeah, you know that old adage, drive it like a rental car?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, that's Grace to a T. And she's the one that created that saying because I've driven behind her in Indianapolis. She was in a rental car going over railroad crossings, all four wheels off the ground. I thought, wow, why are we going 80 miles an hour to get to the restaurant?
because
You
that's
can.
exactly. That's where the fun is.
That's there you go. So for those of you new to the podcast, that's how Grace rolls. Just sharing that with you.
That's all right. You know.
Yeah, I know. You're thinking,
You crazy?
no, she's not crazy at all.
No.
Well,
My cat, however, is crazy, and I, foresee this being the rest of the podcast, so it'll be fun.
Oh, good. Why is the cat tearing things up?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
good.
good. Good times.
just
all
bitten her leg off.
Well, if that happened, right, I really wouldn't still be sitting here. But
She's carrying on.
yeah,
Probably
cats,
scratched it a little
The
bit.
flesh wound.
they do
Yeah.
what they do.
Fair enough.
Lovely.
All right. So number one on our performance competencies of the first three races in Formula One is going to start like this. So we would bring in the drivers, the teams in Formula One. We'd sit them down in a conference room. We'd have another person from HR with us, and we would look across the table and we would ask this question. F1 demonstrated skill and proficiency in carrying out COVID-19 sensitive races in their F1 bubbles. How would you rate that? We're going to start with, let's start with Grace.
All right. I think they at least have a 4. I think they've done a very good job. I think that, but yet, the season's not over and we haven't left Europe yet. So I think that's where some of the challenge might be. But I definitely give them a 4 or 5. I think they've done a good job. Everybody's getting tested. People are, wearing masks, keeping their distance, and so much that the FIA, somebody built those little RC racer, trophy cars. So, I mean,
It was just so
enjoyed
bad.
them. I thought it was great. But somebody spent all night, like, how can we get the trophies to them? And they built these little cars. So,
You and
Trophy
your husband
droids.
would love that because you guys are owners of a drone. You love that kind of stuff.
yeah, man, the only way that's the only way it could be better is if you could like parachute it in or something,
Right.
but they're pretty heavy. But I enjoyed the RC car. That was some ingenuity, even if, it wasn't the best
Right.
solution. So I'm going to give them a 4. I think they have been highly effective. I think they've done a good job.
Well, I do too. That's how I rated them. I would say F1. I think you've got a 4, very highly effective in your ability to do this. Could there be some room for improvement? Well, yes. I've changed the new Formula One hashtag to from We Race as One to We Shame as One, because my gosh. All the people, social media. I just gotta quit watching social media. It's out of control. It's like every picture, everything that goes on. Everybody's like, "Oh, it's not so. Oh, this guy's got the mask too low. This guy."
I feel like this should not have been a new discovery for you, Todd.
No, it's
Social
not.
media is not your friend.
I know. I keep dipping my toe in the lukewarm waters of social media, expecting them to,
You could just
pull out
get
of
5
it.
more friends.
Oh my gosh, it's like full of petulant children. It's just
I think,
crazy.
I think maybe that's not a place you should be waiting for
Yep.
your.
I'm gonna have to go back to newspapers, telephone calls,
They don't
Exactly.
exist.
semaphore.
There you go.
Newspapers don't exist anyway.
Oh, no, that's not true. I have 2 subscription newspapers. Paul, how did you see it? How did you rate Formula One?
I mean, effectiveness of the COVID, keeping everyone safe and healthy, I'd say pretty good. But I think some of the extremes really put me off, including the trophy droids. Those are not the trophy droids I was looking for.
No, they sure weren't. But again, I think somebody gets an A for effort, right? Like somebody had to create that.
Just a little overkill.
It is overkill.
I feel there's a lot of overkill, and I'm not sure who to blame, the FIA or Formula One, right? So
I don't know. I looked at the Parc Fermé after the race, and it was like,
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
that's exactly right.
Right.
I give you these 3 droids. All
that
three
was just
of
in
our
a racing
will
point
serve
garage.
you well.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, as I said, they're doing a great job, but I think, and it's not just them, it's in all racing where they're overdoing the visuals to make a statement rather than do what is actually necessary to keep people safe and clear, right? So
the theater aspect of it is what you're
yeah, I mean, it's
right?
like if you do one or the other, stay 12 feet away or stand next to each other with masks on, but don't do both.
Yeah.
Right? Because all we're stuck with is, sorry, what'd you say? Huh? What? Is that my trophy? I don't know. I don't know. It went down there. It went to see Top of the Hut over there in turn 1.
Yeah, and you can't do these droids coming out with the things because it's a well-known fact. Lewis does not speak Bocce.
He does.
All right, I'm just telling you right now. So
I like that Bodas just nudged it though. He's like,
yeah, Bodas like, give me that.
Yeah.
This is
I'm not waiting for this thing. Give me that thing.
So I don't know if, once again, it's that social media thing, is if they do things that are logical that would then make it better for us watching from home. The social media people will be outraged and, the government will clamp down on them because they're not doing the right thing, etc. I don't know, probably. But it's like, take the masks off when you do the interviews, stay far enough away, even stay 50 feet away and have a speaker asking the questions.
Yeah.
But let's not just say, how was your day today, Lewis? It's like, good.
the best race to make it.
Let's just let's stay far enough away where people can take the masks off, get interviewed properly, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. You've forced me to revise my ranking, Paul. You've talked truth to power. I'm going to reduce that from 4 to a 3.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know.
That's rough.
I was all bigging them up, but I agree with Paul, man. You know what? Just
I don't know.
Think about it a little bit.
I don't know whether to blame them entirely.
No,
you see it in IndyCar, we've seen it in NASCAR, all this stuff. A lot of it is show. Let's do away with the show. Let's just do what's necessary so that people from home, right? I mean, no one's at the races, right? Yeah. We don't need to see that, right? No. We need to see it as close to what we would normally want to see and get ourselves back into the race. But when you're seeing, the surgical masks on all the time, it's disconcerting.
It is. And, nobody, and I understand why, nobody wants to enter the Thunderdome of the mobocracy of social media. So there again, hashtag we shame.
I entered every day. It's fine.
Yeah, right. All right. Number 2 in our employee review, our mid-year employee review. Number 2 question is this: team possesses skills and knowledge to perform the job competently. Which team do you feel? Now, I've chosen 4, and I'm going to give 4 ratings, and then you guys can choose however many you want. If you just want to do 1, that's fine. But here's how I came up with it. I have Ferrari rated as a 2. I have Mercedes a 5. I have Haas a 1. And Racing Point a 4. Okay. That's how I'm
when you're copying off a 5, we can only do a 4.
We got it, right. Yeah. It's kind of like copying your homework, right? You don't. The real smart kid gets 10 out of 10, so I'm going to get 1 wrong just so I can
change some of the wiggly bits so that it doesn't look exactly the same, right?
Exactly.
Well, you speak as if you've done that before.
Every day of my life in school.
How do you think he's gotten this far?
Thanks to the extra 20 minutes in the playground before school started.
There you go.
Thank you, everybody, by the way.
That's
They helped me out.
All
Yeah.
right, Grace,
knows
who'd
stupid.
you pick? What'd you think? Which team seems to possess the skills and knowledge to perform the job competently?
Well, okay, so I think it's hard to argue with Mercedes, right? I mean, that's always the case, right? So that seems like no-brainer. There's no real discussion there. I think the one that I always think is the most interesting that always lives in the 2 is Renault. And they shouldn't. And that's why I always think it's interesting that, like, Renault should be at least a 3, if not a 4 on paper, and then they are always a 2 and sometimes a 1. And so I always think that that's the team that, come on, guys, get it together. But I also think there's something we said, we did see some glimmers of Williams at Hungaroring, although it's Hungaroring and not always the best, example of where teams that don't do very well at other tracks seem to excel at Hungary. See McLaren in the last 10 years. So I do think that was good, though, that you kind of see something, some excitement, some glimmer from Russell and Williams. Maybe they could, up their game a little bit, but, you're right. Haas, it's a 1. That's bad. And then, right.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's not going to be good, right? Just, the Steiner is not going to, if I have to have a performance review, that is who I'd want to be in the room with me while we're doing this, because that's going to be the most entertainment, there's a lot of F words around that 1, right?
I thought you wanted him to go in before you, so they're grading on a curve, you know?
You can only go up.
Yeah, exactly, right? Got rid of Steiner.
You give him his
What
employee
exactly
review.
do you do here? Yeah.
What does he say? You do here. You give him his review. He's like, okay, well, that doesn't really help. Whatever.
Not gonna work here anymore.
We decided not to test because we didn't think it was a big advantage.
Right.
Really? You didn't think so?
Yeah.
Huh. Over the last 50 years of Formula One, preseason testing, pretty important.
Not anymore.
Nothing for you? No.
I think the other one that isn't on your list that might be of interesting discussion is where we would put Red Bull.
I would put them high considering how quickly they fix Max's crashes.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was competency to its fullest.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I would put Red Bull in a 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that. What'd you have, Paul?
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Red Bull was pretty high. I'd give them a 4.5, quite honestly, because they're chasing Mercedes. They're not there on that pace, obviously, but they're
better than Ferrari, better than everyone else.
Better than everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And from coming just in, still the early stages with their Honda partnership, I think overachieving still. And then McLaren, I think I'd give them a 4 also for not falling down. I mean, they had a great season last year. They had a comeback from the depths of despair.
Yeah.
Not easy to keep that up and keep moving on to the future. And I think they've done a great job in which I wasn't kind of thinking was going to happen.
Yeah.
I thought they might have a little drop off, but I think they've kept their level up. Racing Point are the biggest variable out of everyone that's kind of changing the graph, as we say, right? Not because McLaren are doing worse or whatever, just Racing Point just kind of over excelling to all kinds of degrees, and we kind of know why at this point.
Right. All right. That's fair. I think those were fair.
That's good.
Yeah. All right. Number 3. Going back to Formula One itself as a series. F1's skill at planning, organizing, and prioritizing races in 2020. Paul?
I'm going to give them a 3 on that one.
Ooh, zing.
Yeah. I think obviously they didn't take on all of my ideas, which is ridiculous.
Already they can't get any
one
higher.
whole 20% off automatically
Right.
not using the right pencil.
Didn't listen to Paul.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we're on. It's very tenuous right now on how long this season's going to go, and I think
13 races.
Yeah, I mean 13 races, but we don't know what can happen next week that those 13 races become 0 races left, right? So I think they would have been better planned to try and double up races on weekends and maybe do the NASCAR style where you've got a race on Sunday and a race on Wednesday, and condense the season enough where we can get a little few more races in there. I think it's the one thing they've done good is done good. Is that proper English? I don't.
It is now.
I do
It's
not.
not
think
American
Queen
English. It
is
must be
happy
British
there.
English.
It must be.
Done
It's
good.
East End English, but I think they've done well to find alternate tracks in Europe, and it's going to be interesting to see these teams go to what didn't used to be an F1 grade track that all of a sudden are, and see how they perform. And it will be interesting to see the cars at tracks we've never seen them for, and quite a few of them. So I applaud that in the reaction of finding alternatives fairly quickly. But as I know, dealing with my IMSA team, that's a very fluid situation from week to week here in America as well.
Right. Yeah, and IndyCar just showed us that today, right?
Right. And anything on the West Coast or in the Northeast, even if they haven't shown it so far, are going to be strucken from other series as well very quickly.
Yeah. Grace, would you have this rated at?
So I think similar to Paul, they included Russia on the calendar, so they can't get higher than a 4. This was your chance to not have Russia on the calendar, and you included it anyway. I mean, I guess it really depends on what their goal is, right? If their goal is, 4 continents, 15 races, then perhaps they get a 4, right? But I can't imagine going to tracks that you have, even though we as fans like the idea of, we're going to go to Mugello, on top of the fact that we're only going to Mugello because it's Ferrari's 100th celebration, whatever, 1,000th thing. So we're going to go to Ferrari's track, fine. I think that has to be a nightmare for the teams from some sort of a, all of a sudden we're going to these tracks that you've never been to before, and you're going in 2 weeks. Good luck, right? That has to be.
It is, but it's kind of good. As we found in racing here, it's like everyone gets stuck in this rut where we have to have 3 months before this, we have to have this information 6 months ahead of time, and all of a sudden, well, you got a week, so figure it out.
I hope you're right. I mean, I remember when we
Yeah.
talked before the season started, and I asked you, how long would it take a team to put a car together? And you said they will take as long as you give them, right?
Mhm.
So I totally get that side of it, right?
Yeah.
You will take as long as the amount of time is given to you. So there is some element to that. I just hope it works that way, right? I guess I've never seen that, and I don't know how flexible Formula One really is to that. But it would be great if they would be suddenly more flexible. Wouldn't that make future seasons, when we are not in a COVID-19 pandemic situation, you could have more flexibility like that, or you could go to different tracks. It wouldn't be such a stodgy thing all the time, right?
Yeah, I think a big thing we're learning here is the economics can be seriously condensed, and still they put on a race, as we see in NASCAR and IndyCar.
Yeah.
They show up in the morning and they race in the afternoon, and the fundamental thing is we watch a race and there's a winner at the end, and they're getting to that point. Just all the other fluff before it isn't really adding a lot to the whole equation. So why include it if we're trying to keep our budgets tight, which we're going to have to be for quite a while at this point, I feel.
Yeah. So I think, to give my rating, I'm going to give them a 3, but I think there's a lot of potential. I think that, if we did another quarter, that easily could be a 4 or 5. I think I'm still a little cautious about how this is all going to work out, and how.
Now, if they'd had 12 races of Silverstone, what would we say?
If some of them were backwards, maybe.
Right.
No, I mean, I think, right, you don't want that either, right? So there's a balance, and everybody's kind of trying to figure it out. But I'm gonna give them a 3. But I see that you guys rate them higher, and I can see that, and I may next quarter rate them higher as well.
Yeah, I give him a 4. They just added those 3 races: Imola, Nürburgring, and Portimao in Portugal. I very much, like you, Paul, I love the idea that nobody on that grid has raced a Formula One car around Portimao. And the teams don't have any data to rely on from last year's Pirellis, or they have no idea degradation levels. I mean, they're not idiots. Of course, they're going to know the track abrasion and that kind of thing, and they'll figure it out. They're geniuses. But as well as I do, there is going to be a lot of unknowns. in the data. And so the car setups will be, rushed. There's going to be a lot of
Yeah,
stress
they
around
probably don't even have these cars on their sims.
Yeah, right.
And even Formula 2 don't even run outside of Formula 1. So they're Formula 2 are kind of stuck with the same track.
Right.
So they're going to be looking to Formula 3 teams to help them with data, try and build their points out and to kind of build their setups.
And I think that's going to be actually pretty exciting, that none of these drivers have driven there. Most of them haven't driven Imola. Quite a few have done Nürburgring, but still, I think that throws a real curveball into this season. So I'm kind of excited about that. The thing I do like about that is it's like, well, we aren't just doing 2 more races in Austria, and having 4 there. I like that they were at least saying, hey, let's roll the dice. Let's go to Portugal. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So I think
I still wish they were a little bit more experimental with their race weekend procedures, though.
Yeah, I agree. I just think the logistics behind all of that make it just untenable, given that it's a truncated season and it's compressed. And I think getting 13 races all jammed into the season, knowing their target's 15 for the broadcast obligations, I think they've done a really, really good job. Not happy that they're not coming to North America, and we'll talk about that later. But anyway, I think they've done a really good job. So I give them a 4-2.
You just missed the driver parade, right, Paul?
Yeah, especially when the car breaks down halfway around.
It's your favorite part.
Yeah.
They took it away.
Yeah. All right, question number 4 in our 12-question employee review. Broadcast has been professional, in-depth, and compelling, as well as the race ceremonies. I knew this would get Paul. So here's who I rated on that. Number 1, I rated F1, and I gave that a 2. I rated Sky/ESPN, which here in the States, just for those of you around the world, we just take the backhaul feed from Sky Sports and they rebroadcast us on ESPN. So Sky/ESPN, I gave them a 3. And the actual podium ceremony, I gave a 2.
Whoa, a 2?
A 2.
Very generous of you.
Yes.
What?
It kind of was generous of me.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So who did you have, and who did you rate, Grace?
Well, I guess first thinking of the broadcasting, to me, it's the same as it always is, whether I like that or not, right? I don't know. Does that make them a 3? I don't know. I mean,
same as it ever was.
That's exactly it, right? Not my beautiful house. I think, right. Yeah, I don't know. I have this problem, and I always miss Steve Matchett, right? I get that Martin Brundle is kind of the Steve Matchett. I mean, kind of. That's kind of what. Yeah. But I miss a Steve Matchett, and I don't think Sky really has somebody that really.
They don't.
Does that, and that's what I miss the most out of Sky.
They got PDR, and they got.
Yeah, but they only have drivers. They don't. Steve Matchett wasn't a driver.
No,
right?
he's a mechanic.
Yeah. He was a technical guy, and they need a technical guy to bounce out, the plethora of Formula One champions. Oh yeah, right.
But there's just never they say somebody will say something, Crafty or somebody will say something, and that's where I wish Steve would go, well, not exactly. That's not actually how that kind of works. What it really happens is this, right? So I've always felt that, and I think that Steve Matchett is a singular talent, and I just wish they had that person that kind of gave you something more than just color commentary, which is what a lot of what Sky is. Look at that guy going fast, and oh my God, and I see you through my pirate glass, and okay, I get the color commentary is great, but I really want you to be telling me something that I don't necessarily already know. And at least when Speed used to do it, and then Fox did it, you could watch practice and get a lot of that, right? That was the only reason I ever watched practice, was because that's the only time they let Steve Matchett talk for more than 5 seconds before somebody cut him off, right? And so I guess I don't know that they're inconsistent. They're very consistent. I just think they're missing that kind of technical thing. And I guess I've talked about this before. There isn't. Again, I think Brundle tries to do it, but I think what's really interesting is that when you're at the track, somebody goes, you see how he does it, this thing, right? And YouTube has kind of filled that, right? You can watch, a Mark Priestley video or somebody, or a Chamber, and you can talk, and they'll talk about how, this is how you take a corner, or here's how Verstappen is different than Hamilton. But I always talk about when we were in Austin, right? And just sitting in a corner with Paul Charsley, you learn a lot, right? Because somebody points out to you, look at this thing. And I just don't think Sky does that very well, or necessarily provides more than just, oh my God, they're running into each other. Yeah, I have eyes. I can see they're running into each other. That didn't help me very much.
I think Kravitz is he's not the expert, but he's the closest thing you get to.
Yeah.
But he's not a technical guy, but he's the only guy that's even going to talk about the technical things to some degree.
Right. And I think we talk about this a lot too, right? That, everybody kind of talks to the lowest common denominator, but I think a sport like this, you need to talk about what the cars can do and what the cars look like. And that should be part of your race broadcast. It shouldn't just be secondary information you looked up, somewhere else.
It should be an education process as well.
Right.
That's, it's interesting to learn new things, not just to be told.
Right. And so I think, again, practice, if you don't want to take up your 2-hour race block doing that, that's where practice really could serve that, because you have all this time to fill. And instead of just filling it with, whatever, they're talking about, like it's baseball, because baseball is boring, so we're just filling time. You could be talking about technical things that might be useful or informative or helpful to people. But I don't think they're inconsistent. They're consistently the same. What else did the podium, I think, so I watched both of the MotoGP races. They kind of did podiums the same. People just wore masks. They even had people bring out the trophies wearing masks. So I think, to Paul's point, right, like, okay, Formula One, maybe you could just like push those little circles a little closer. Everybody's wearing masks, or, it was a little.
The drivers just hugged over there coming out of the cars, and now. Yeah.
Right.
And at this moment is where the infection begins.
And they are all bubbled, right? So if you're in a bubble, that's the whole point of being bubbled, is that you should have a little more freedom, just like you do in your house, right? You're bubbled with your people. I don't wear a mask in my house. I know everywhere Flip's been, and he knows wherever I've been. And so we don't have to wear masks. We can bubble together, and you can bubble with another family. So I think that if you're at the point where you're assigning a photographer to each team and they're bubbled with that team, we can kind of squish those circles together, or have the podium celebration up where they were. I've never understood why we brought them down to pit lane. Why altitude? The virus doesn't care. I don't know, but
we don't know.
Fauci has never talked about that. You're right. He has never talked about the difference in altitude, being a pit lane to being up here on the podium. But
but he has talked about the lack of hydration and how you can,
Yeah. So I think that Formula One hopefully takes a little more time to think about that, because I think you do want this. I mean, again, I think you saw in the MotoGP rate, if you watch it, right? So Valentino Rossi came in third, and he was really excited, and he like jumped up on the wall, like there are fans there, right? It was great. Like, didn't matter to Rossi. He was still celebrating as he always did, whether there were people in the stands or not. And I think that you still want that, even though there aren't fans in the stands. So,
Paul, how'd you see it?
Bring down a notch.
Woo. Wow, we've pretty gone over this thing. Well, I think I had an opinion and I completely lost me, but let's go back to the podium ceremonies. I'll work my way back. Maybe I'll remember what I was thinking. So I'm giving podium ceremonies a 1, and that's generous because you didn't give me an option of a 0. Because for all the reasons I've mentioned before, where it's just over the top stupidity and just, I hate the word bring some normalcy back to things. I hate that word, but let's just bring some reality to the show, that, and you do things that are necessary and not just to pander to everybody out there screaming. Now, I haven't been able to see the ESPN version. I've only been seeing F1 TV when it's working. So I see the abbreviated Sky Sports. I hear Karun talking, but I don't see what he's pointing at right now.
It's fine. Him and Ant Davidson wear the same outfit every week, which is apparently the official outfit.
And expanding on the podium ceremony, I do enjoy seeing Martin Brundle with a mask on in an empty grandstand. That's pretty awesome.
Right.
And those guys keep mentioning how they're in the grandstand and how great it is to be in the grandstand. And wow, I can see so much from the grandstand. That's
why that's where the fans sit.
Yeah. Now, who do we blame for the stupid graphics for this year? Because all these things we've got with the TV show is, I don't know if it's even COVID influenced. It's just
stupid
evolution, stupid stuff. But the graphics have gone outrageously worse. let's just stop, please.
I can't believe I didn't even rate the graphics.
I know, that's brilliant.
They are a 0. They get a -0.
Yes.
I'd rather go just to the simple Siemens pylon over at the left-hand side of the screen.
Right.
And I'll do my own math, thank you. But
Tell me what the gap is, what the last lap was, and I can figure it out, right?
I'll figure it out. But
So
the
what-
graphics are like...
It's going to be a battle in 7 laps. Yeah. He's only got 10% on his left front tire, but 100% on his right rear. How did that happen?
No one knows. Lewis is genius.
He's a genius. Yes, it's all. I don't even know how they get that data, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty weak.
Somebody in the Pirelli booth's got to be sitting there seeing that, laughing their butts off.
Right. Let's put this in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you 2, and a 1 for the podium ceremony as we got there between F1 and Sky. I don't know who to blame, but someone's going to have to pay.
All right. I do want to say, so the graphics, I feel like I say this every podcast too. Just whoever's in charge of the graphics, watch MotoGP. They make it so simple, and yet you really understand what the hell's going on. So they took the, the little pylon, right, that's in the corner, and they run it on the track so you can see what the gaps are, because that's always the problem, right? You can't, because visually, the TV you can't always tell how far a car is from each other because of the way television broadcast images, right? But, so you can look at that time. And so they scroll it over the track. And so you can see where everybody is and how they place each other. It's a very low-key graphic, right? It's not something crazy. And I'm like, why doesn't Formula One just do this, right? It doesn't have to be so hard. I just need to know this group's together, and Fabio Quartararo is 7 hours out in front of everybody else. We're good. That's what you need to know, right?
I agree. All right. Question number 5. Teams that show proficiency at improving work methods and procedures as a means towards greater efficiency. Now, bear in mind, these are actual questions from an actual employee review, folks. I didn't make these up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so here's who I rated. Red Bull.
Okay.
All right, given their lack of pace. Racing Point. So on Red Bull, here, I'll tell you what I gave them. Red Bull, I gave them a 3. Proficient. And, they're still off the pace. Racing Point, I gave a 4. Mercedes, I gave a 5. And Grace, your team, McLaren, I gave a 5.
You gave McLaren a 5 and Red Bull a 3.
Yeah, I expect it from Red Bull. And I was least expecting it from McLaren.
Remind me never to be in a performance evaluation with Paul.
I know. Huh. So you feel you did that?
That's what you're going to go with here.
You think, you did that well, did you?
You think you did that well, huh?
Yeah.
Have you practiced this? Okay.
You thought the pink shirt and the jean shorts were appropriate on Hawaiian shirt day? Did you?
That's right. Huh.
Wow. You gave them a 5. Huh.
No wonder Paul's never had to sit through an employee review.
It's cold-hearted.
I'm unemployable.
I just let it go.
Oh, man. So there you go. Who did you pick, Paul?
Well, you said I could only pick one, I could pick one, but another one I wanted to add was Williams. And so I'm going to give them a 5.
I was just going to say, don't give them a 5.
I'm giving them a 5.
It hasn't been exceptional.
It's been exceptional in what they've had. Their improvement from one year to the next has been exceptional compared to everybody else. And yes, they were in the...
Not compared to Racing Point.
Maybe similar.
Wow.
You're grading on being at the sharp end. I'm grading on where you were last year to where you are, how the rate of improvement, right? And
rate of improvement. Okay.
The what you have to do within a team to get that rate of improvement, and how you could. I mean, Williams did a lot of changing, right?
Well, let me get my calculator out here.
Thank good.
I just
a lot of percentages.
Still have Racing Point ahead.
Okay, well, whatever.
I think when Claire...
I thought this was my review. I didn't know I could be wrong. I know I'm not wrong, but
I just feel like
totally
somebody should send this podcast to Claire, and when she's having a bad day and she's ready to throw in the towel, like a half an hour in, she should listen to this, right? Like,
sorry, I'm changing my 4.5 because Claire's still there.
Don't listen to this part, Claire. Listen to everything
That's
before
it, Claire. Turn it. Give me your jacket. You're done. Wow.
Gosh.
But they had to change a lot of pieces in that, brought new people in,
including Patty Lowe.
Getting rid of him is definitely a plus
Claire.
one, right? Hi, Patty.
See you later, Patty.
The parts are outside. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm in a conversation right here, Patty.
Yeah, I'm talking and ignoring you, Patty. Go away. Shoo, go.
But yeah, I don't think there's no small effort to improve that much where they're not at the back of the grid right now. From a place where no one even questioned that they would be at the back of the grid every race.
They still are at the back.
I mean, not in qualifying for sure.
No, not in qualifying.
Right?
But as the championship goes.
In the championship, but we're only 3 races deep, right?
And
but,
all 3 races they were last, right?
You don't let me finish.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Once again.
I am not trying to take the stuffing out of you here. I think Williams has done an awesome job, and what they've overcome from where they were last year. Couldn't agree with you more, Paul. And I think a lot of that, not only is to the team and to what they've done, but I give George Russell a lot of credit too.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think whatever they've done is similar to what McLaren did in a way where they really did a lot of restructuring, and then you're starting to see the fruits of labor. With Williams, I feel like it's come a little quicker than I expected, honestly.
Yeah. All right, Grace, what'd you have?
Well, I guess I'm trying to think of like who we haven't kind of talked about, right? So we haven't talked about
Alphas.
Right? The Alphas. Right. And I think that's for because they aren't very high on anybody's list. So I think that is they have a lot of space to make up some improvement, right? So I would hope that in the next quarter they would, do a little better, pick it up a little bit. I agree that I think Williams, I have my eye on them. I hope that they do better in some of these other races and that Hungary wasn't a one-off for their performance.
Yep.
Greater efficiency. Well, I think that Ferrari better hope that they're working towards some greater efficiency over there.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think that this is, even though in the beginning I was joking about how they should just get straight ones on all of these, and you guys were like, wow, they've been on the podium. Yeah, they have been on the podium, but it's also Ferrari, and I'm sure that to them this is not cool, right? Not okay. So I would hope that next quarter, not as a fan, but just for Ferrari's sake, that they've done a little bit better in their improved work methods and procedures.
They're about to blow up that organization too, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yep.
And they would have been doing better, Grace, if McLaren hadn't stole their technical manual, but whatever.
That was literally like 20 years ago. I can't imagine that technical manual is still very useful.
Still paying dividends for the papaya boys.
So we have to do a quarter review. We have to do performance evaluations every quarter because everything moves so quickly. But that manual from 20 years ago, man, that's really helping McLaren out.
Yep, still paying dividends.
All right,
that's
all
the
3
gift that
pages
keeps
of
on
it.
Giving, Clark.
Man, those appendices, they're still finding stuff.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Number 6, driver that communicates effectively with teams, fans, and sponsors. Grace, we're going to start with you.
Okay. Well, I think effectively, I think sheer volume, Lewis does a lot, right? He's been doing a lot of communicating. I think that
prolific.
Yeah, right. So, but I think it's effective. I think he's really and he stuck to his guns, which is not, again, we were earlier talking about the swamp that is social media, right? So it isn't always easy to kind of say, here's my thing, I'm sticking to it, here's what my beliefs are, and screw you guys.
He was really quiet in the off season, or in the gap season, should we call it?
The gap season, yes.
Yeah.
He sure was. He was learning, what did you say? He was learning German or something, right?
9.
Yeah, I don't remember what language you told me he was learning. That was like
French. No, he was very good at French. He was
That was
very good
like-
at French at high school.
That was a long time ago. That was like 7 months ago, the gap year. So I think that's true. I do think, I mean, Norris is all, I mean, you have Norris on your list, Todd, right? It's in front of us. So, I mean, that's always true. I think that he's really embraced the whole social media, Twitch, video game world, and especially in the gap year in a way that even though
Dropped
other
a bomb on us, baby. He dropped a bomb. Come on, it's the Gap.
It is. But I think even the other guys like Leclerc and Albon and Russell, right? And they play together,
Yes.
or Verstappen, right? But I think Norris has really honed that sort of like extra social media kind of Twitch environment is really what he's done well. So I think Norris definitely gets a 5. I think I'd give Lewis a 5. I think that it's hard, you know, he's in a tough place sometimes, you know, I don't know. And I'm going to give Kimi Räikkönen a 3. I don't know how else. Because he's consistently the same. I do think the fact that all these guys, you know, because when they wear the hats and the sunglasses and the face coverings, unless they wear like distinct sunglasses, they all could be Vettel, right? Like any of them could be Vettel, except for Roman Grosjean, who wears those like steampunk sunglasses. So you always know who Roman Grosjean is, but everybody else, it could just be Vettel. And I think that is Kimi Räikkönen's ideal situation. Nobody would ever know it was him because he just was like, you could just like blend in like Kaiser Sose, just blend right into the crowd and off Kimi goes to wherever Kimi's going to go.
Right.
And nobody would ever know.
Cool. Paul, who'd you have?
Well, I'm gonna, the Brit Pack plus a couple of young Frenchies.
Okay.
So, you know, the Norris, the Albon,
Yeah.
the, you know, the Leclerc, the Gasly, and the Russell. I think that, you know, these are the young guns that are coming up, and I think in the off season they kept everyone pretty well entertained, right, with
Yeah,
their
for
racing and their antics and this and that. Whereas a lot of older drivers just kind of kept themselves to themselves, and I think, you know, they're the upsurgence of what sponsor would want, what the fans are engaging with. So I think those 5 guys on their own can kind of save or completely change how everyone views Formula One and interacts with it, honestly.
Yeah, I actually found myself watching them playing Rocket League together, right? Like, I mean, they're very funny together.
I know. Todd did a lot of that watching the Rocket League thing.
I bet he did. I'm sure
He kept,
Todd plays a
he
lot
kept
of
tweeting to me about that. Yeah.
God, that
oh,
Myrtle, she's really
Did you
hard.
see that? That was awesome. That was incredible. Yeah. I had Norris. I gave him a 5.
Yeah.
I had Daniel Ricciardo.
Yeah.
Gave him a 4. I thought he did a great job of reaching out. I also
Just his parkour through his house was well worth it.
Yes, and all
for
the
that.
tractor work he did on the farm.
Right.
It was kind of like, what was that show where they had Paris Hilton and
The Simple Life.
yeah, it's kind of like that, except
Nicole
with Daniel
Richie.
Ricciardo. Yeah, Nicole
Yes.
Richie. Yeah, so there's Daniel on the farm. Yeah,
Daniel on
it's great.
the farm. I thought it was great.
He's in his overalls. He's spinning some hay, you know.
It's great. Oft overlooked, Daniel Ricciardo. Yeah. That's right, Australia. I'm giving you love because I love Australia. It's awesome.
Right.
Never been there. Need to go. So the other guy I gave Lewis Hamilton. Gave him a 4. I thought he was outdone by the young guns, Lando Norris and others. And I think the old veteran is getting outshone by the young rookies, the hot shoe rookies that are more prolific on more platforms.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different generational thing at this point.
Yeah, he's a stodgy old codger.
Stuff. Yes, he is. Yeah,
Well,
he's on the Facebook looking for his old high school girlfriend.
Yeah.
At this point.
He's still hung up on the Instagram, you know, and all these others on Twitch and Discord and everything else over here, right? So yeah, and then
meanwhile,
finally,
the 3 of us had MySpace. I don't think we have any space to talk about, you know, how old Lewis is on Instagram, right?
What do you mean had?
There you go.
And what? I wonder. What? Is it not good anymore? It's not cool.
Yeah. What?
nobody's
Tom
on
was
that.
cool.
He was too.
Tom
He was my
cool.
first friend.
He was my first friend.
He
too,
was my
Tom.
first friend on MySpace.
He
That Tom
turned
gets
around and he had his hand, you know.
Yeah.
It was a weird photo, actually. I was kind of
It was. Almost
freaked
like
out
he-
by that. Who is this Tom, and why is he looking over his shoulder at me?
Right.
I don't know.
Let's see. Then my final one, Max Verstappen. I give him a 4. I think he does a great job too.
Yeah.
All right. Number 7, team with ability to work independently. Ha ha! You had to think about this one, didn't you? Yes, you did. Humor me.
I did.
Let me start then.
Okay.
I feel that Mercedes, they are not just working independently. They are setting the benchmark. They are defining what performance and design is. I gave them a 5. Red Bull, working completely independently, I gave them a 5, and I think they're doing a great job of that. They always have. And when you got a weapon in your arsenal like Adrian Newey designing your cars, you tend not to follow the pack, right? You do your own thing, and they got a 5. Racing Point, I gave a 2.
Oh.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say, if you gave them a 5, this is over.
Completely not independently. They were completely reliant on photos, everything.
And recess to cheat on that.
Yeah, exactly.
The IKEA shipments, yeah.
And finally, I gave McLaren a 4. I think they've really upped their game this year in sort of their independent approach to the design, the chassis. They're still working with that Renault with the eye to working towards that Mercedes engine. Yeah, I think they've done a really good job. So that's kind of how I ranked them, as being independent teams following their own design cues, their own marks. So, Paul, what'd you have?
Well, we got the kind of a point to talk about the Ferrari number 2 teams, with Haas, and with, who else has, Alfa Romeo.
Alfa Romeo,
yeah. Yeah, obviously we know that Ferrari have their ills with their engine department, but it seems like these teams are being exposed a little bit they were fully reliant on the engine to help elevate their performance, even though Haas was still struggling last time. And, it doesn't seem like Haas can work independently to solve any issue they have, whether it be their brakes or their tires or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially, and it's a great point, Paul, because you think, well, okay, look, they're buying that Dallara chassis. That's a given. And how much would Dallara be willing to develop that chassis over time? I'm sure they would be willing to develop as much as you could pay to have it developed, right? So they just don't have a lot of cash to do that development. But that point of not getting on top of their brakes, not being able to get on top of the tire, that comes down to possibly more aero and chassis performance.
Or choosing the right drivers.
Oh.
What are you talking about? The drivers are fine.
Their drivers are awesome, man. Especially that Frenchman.
Yeah, they didn't even need to test because they had it all figured out. They're going to be great.
They're that good, man. How dare you question them?
And they don't even need to test Romain for COVID. I mean, we don't test, not around here. Nope. So anyway, I think another one talking about Alpha is Alpha Tauri, right? So they're a Honda customer. So
yeah. So all the number 2s, and then obviously Renault, who have to work independently next year, really independently, because no one else wants their bloody engines.
Nope.
And yet still, floundering under Cyril's guidance.
Cyril's expert leadership.
Something. That's not good there.
They got Alonso, so.
I don't.
Well, they do have Alonso. That's exactly what they have, but that's coming next year.
No more radio, the rest of the race.
All right.
But as we know, Alonso can carry a car only so far, as we saw when McLaren was struggling with a car that wasn't quite very good.
He will carry that car as far as he can, and then after that, they will kick Cyril out. That's my hunch.
Okay.
Grace?
Not before.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Is there anybody who haven't we discussed?
Well, you don't have to pick somebody different. You can agree.
Well, I mean, I think
we didn't pick Williams.
Okay. Ability to work independently.
Ferrari.
Actually, Williams, I'd give a 4 if I was picking Williams.
Oh,
because
he's jumping on my bandwagon now.
Oh, now he's come around. I see how this works. First,
now you got the love for Williams.
He was incredulous 3 questions ago.
Now it's his idea.
Why are you being so damned reasonable now?
Let's choose FedEx.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
No, and here's my justification. My justification is that they too could have followed Racing Point's cue on their chassis, and they didn't. It's their own deal, own chassis. That's important to Frank. We all know that. And if it's important to Frank, it's got to be important to Claire. And yet they're using a customer Mercedes engine, but they didn't just wholesale copy a Mercedes like somebody else.
Racing Point.
Yes.
I think Ferrari.
Tracing point. Yep.
Tracing point. Yes. I mean, Ferrari always works independently to a fault, perhaps, right? Like they are. Yeah. I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree with any of the things you guys have put out there. I think that, Raising Point's the big one. I think Renault they work independently and they can't get out of their own way. I'm not going to turn down a 4 for McLaren, even if I didn't agree with it. I'll take that. Okay.
All right, good.
What else said?
Let's see. Number 8 is drivers' ability to work cooperatively as part of a team.
Okay.
Here's my picks. Number 1, Valtteri Bottas, a 5.
Yeah.
My next one, Kimi Räikkönen, a 5.
What?
Number 3, I gave to Gasly. He gets a 3.
Because of last week.
Yeah. And Roman Grosjean, a 2.
Generous.
Grace, how did you see this, Grace?
Well, I think some of Grosjean's problem is the team also doesn't want to work very cooperatively with him either, right? Like that's a two-way street for those guys.
It's a vicious circle, you know?
that is correct. I don't think that's a one-sided arrangement.
Yes.
Why did you give Kimi a 5? Isn't Kimi? I would just think Kimi does his thing, and the team just has
He's
to
just
adapt
a
to
3
that.
in everything, isn't he, Kimi?
Right. He's just his Kimi.
No, I think he makes a really good teammate. I think he's no drama, no nothing. He's not banging into his teammate, taking his teammate out in Austria. None of that stuff. You just don't see that from Kimi usually. But Bottas, total wingman.
Oh yeah, I think that I agree with that. Yeah, for sure. I was just questioning the Kimi, not questioning I just was interested in why you gave him a 5 because again, I think 3 straight across the board. Kimi's Kimi. He does his thing. It's a hobby for him, right? Like he comes in, he does his thing, he goes home. He's straight 3s. That's fine. That's good. 3s are good.
Okay. That's your point.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you. I thought that's what the point of this podcast was 7 hours later, was to somehow share our opinions.
It's totally about that, Grace.
I'll just agree from now on. Whatever Charlie says, that's good. We'll go with that.
That's a better idea.
I love it.
Good strategy.
I love the opinion.
Just pick what Poe picks. That's fine. That's a good strategy.
Yeah. No.
I think, let's see who... Well, okay, so you have Ferrari, right? And you have Vettel and Leclerc, and that's not going well at all.
Cooperative.
Yeah, not so much there at all. Yeah, I agree with Bottas. Who else? I'm trying to think of what are other good. I think McLaren's working. I think McLaren's 4s across the board, 4s and 5s across the board. And I think given that we all know that Sainz is going to Ferrari, that it still seems to be working well, and they are. Right. I do think some part of Norris's presence is his relationship with Carlos Sainz, and I think we're all kind of looking to see how the jokester team is going to look next year in sort of a social media front, that you have Ricciardo and Norris together, and will it be fun like it's been with Norris and Sainz, or will it be too much, or will they just hate each other? Who knows, right?
Right.
Maybe you're right. Like maybe they're too similar, but I think McLaren's really kind of as a team that always hasn't had good driver relationships.
Nice, Ron.
Exactly. Has really found a way to...
anything.
Fine. Nobody told me anything, said Lewis Hamilton. Really?
Yeah, right. Really? The Pro Senna, that was a dream.
That worked out really well. So I think that
I
think that in general, McLaren has really is 4s and 5s across the board, and I think this is another place where they found cooperation between the teams and between the two separate halves of the team, and the drivers. All right,
Paul.
Yeah, well, I mean, you got Red Bull. Obviously, everyone cooperates well as long as it's whatever Max wants.
I do want to say, they overly go to Christian Horner, right? And so that's always a joke. They're like,
he's the only guy you can understand. Otherwise, it's Cyril or what's his name from AlphaTauri. It's like, or it's Gunther Steiner. It's like, how do you not keep going to Christian?
But I just like when Max was on the race. I think it was in the second Austria race where he was just like on the radio, like, "What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Now's when I want you to cut to Christian Horner. Christian, we just heard on Max's radio what he should do. We'd like to know your opinion on that." What should Max do
What
right
should he
now?
do?
That
Right.
is when you need to be using that team principle, not like, I had a chicken sandwich today. What did you get? Right? Like, come on, man. That's when you need to use that Christian Horner line.
Yeah,
Funny.
I think Albon's an interesting one because I still haven't figured out if the team are accepting him wholeheartedly and supporting him, or it just seems like a bit to and fro whether they're blaming him or fully supporting him. It seems to depend on the day. It's a whim on whether they're fully behind Albon as the number 2 or not, really.
It is Red Bull.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I saw Christian say something this past week that he was surprised about some of the criticism about Albon, which is the first sort of strong defense I can recall, Christian.
Right, exactly, right.
Yeah.
They've kind of let stuff go through, and then obviously Hungaroring was where we first heard Albon actually saying something negative and sounded a bit exasperated by his inter-team communications, like, I told you guys, that he did this and that. So that's an interesting one too. And the Daniel Ricciardo one in Renault, right? How do you rate Daniel Ricciardo working cooperatively with the Renault team when they've, Ocon is obviously their guy for the future, but I think he works really well, and I don't question that Daniel doesn't put 100% in every time, and I think it's still showing in the results that Daniel was, getting the results that the best results Renault can get, and Ocon probably hasn't yet.
Yeah. Let's see. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip a couple.
Okay.
I'm going to land on number 11.
Was it louder?
What?
Because it's louder. Not Nicky Lauda. It's louder in volume.
Oh,
Number
louder.
11.
It's your British accent. I thought you were talking Nicky Lauda. I thought, what?
Crazy.
His number wasn't 11? What did it go? I don't get
go
it.
to 11. Now I get it.
Louder.
It's louder. It's one louder.
Okay. This is not going well for
He's
you.
not even wearing a mask.
I think the interview is over at this point.
Paul has been replaced by Christian Horner because he's the only person we can
I
understand.
think we have all the information we need to make a good evaluation of where we're going to be going from here right now.
Paul, turn in your samples. We're letting you go.
I'm just
All
in the
right.
baker's box, right?
All right.
Your badge has already been discontinued.
You
Anyway.
get one box. I hope everything
Fix the
fits in
glitch.
it. We find that it's better on
On a Friday.
Friday. There's less more of an incident.
Right.
All right, number 11. Team with adeptness at analyzing race, problem solving, decision making, and demonstrating good strategy. Ooh. Yes. Grace, go.
There's a lot in that question. Holy
There
cow.
is.
Basically, being a good team.
Oh, with a lot of words. Why does it just say number
well,
11? Are you being
how
racist?
to
Not to do with
analyze
designing the car, it's to do with running a race weekend.
Yes, strategy, reading the race as it unfolds, decision making during a race, demonstrating really good strategy on a whole.
Why?
I'll go.
Okay.
What do you think?
All right, very good.
Okay, my first one, McLaren.
Nice, Ron.
I gave McLaren a 4. I think they're doing a really good job of it. They're reading it well. They haven't always qualified where they wanted to.
Right.
Lando Norris, his strategy, the team strategy, and getting him back up front has worked well. Even when Carlos had maybe a slow start, it had a little bit of an altercation at the start of one of the races, but they did manage him. Had that slow pit stop, still got him back into the points. I think the team has done really well. The second one is Red Bull. Red Bull don't have the pace of Mercedes, and so they're trying to throw the strategy game with undercuts. Undercuts worked. The very first race is unfortunate because they had qualified on mediums, and everybody else started the race on reds, on softs.
It would have been great for them.
Oh, that would have been great for them. And unfortunately, Max had a DNF with a mechanical, and so we didn't get to see that strategy play out, which I think that would have been really interesting. And then, of course, a week later, they couldn't do the same trick, or Mercedes knew. But
didn't someone do that? But then the rain kind of scuppered. It was Lance Stroll
Was
in
it
the
Stroll,
Racing
maybe?
Point actually played that game, and that would have been great for him too. But.
Yeah, right. But I think it's that kind of thing. Red Bull knows that there's too much gap in the margins on performance, so they're going to have to get really creative, or as creative as they can with the strategy. And I think they're really doing a good job of it. And then Mercedes, absolutely, I gave them a 4 too. I think Mercedes is doing a fantastic job. And you can say, well, that's easy to do when you have a car that's literally beating the stuffing out of everyone else. That's true, but that doesn't marginalize their actual strategy and their race call, and the way they read a race is as we know, is just terrific. So I've given them a 4. Grace, go ahead.
Oh, all right. I'm trying to think of what are the 2s and 3s? Like what is the other end?
Awesome,
You're right. They're -0, kind of across the board so far.
Actually, they came up with great strategies, but the rule book kind of threw them back down the grid.
Right.
Well, then I think that definitely, right? You're not very adept then, are you?
I don't know. Maybe Alfa Romeo too, I think, has struggled a little bit in that front.
Yeah, probably falling back rather than moving forward in the races.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would argue that I think Williams kind of got scuppered, a little bit by some strategy there too that may not have made the best use of it.
Yeah, I'm just not sure they have the race pace for whatever
No,
reason.
I don't think so.
They need strategy up right
yeah,
now.
even if they had a really, really killer strategy, they just don't have the car to deliver it. So I think that's
sort of like
probably
turbo
fair.
boost or something, right? Like
Right.
rocket engine.
Or like DRS or something. I mean,
Or whatever. Fan votes.
Fan
yeah.
votes.
Yeah, so Williams,
Yeah.
Yeah, and so as always, we'd always want their adeptness to improve with each quarter, and it probably won't, but we would like to see some of that.
We would. Paul, what came to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think McLaren are probably doing it the best. They've got both strong drivers. They got a decently strong car, and as we've seen, they don't allow cars to run behind, team cars to run behind each other for any length of time at all, to kind of give them a chance, right? It's a team game, and they play the team game and get the most out for the team at the end of a race. So I appreciate that. Ferrari probably not doing that great at this right now.
Yeah.
Well, they're not doing great at anything, but
Ooh, yes. No, they're not doing well at all.
problem solving not their utmost.
Probably not.
This is Enzo Ferrari.
That's Enzo.
Yes.
Yep.
All right.
Good old Vettel.
All right, finally, the last question of the review is this. Number 12, displays fairness towards all other drivers.
Why would you do that?
Who's a fair driver? Who's showing fairness? Or which driver isn't showing fairness? Yeah. I had Kimi Räikkönen as a 4. I think Kimi's a real straight up fair driver. And I think Sergio Perez in the first 3 races has been pretty straightforward. Has not a lot of argy-bargy out there, as you would say, Paul.
A little bit.
Not a lot.
On Albon, remember?
Well, yeah, but that,
You like my pace? You like it?
Yeah, that's true. We did like his pace, so
we did.
We did.
Yeah, totally. Then I had Bottas a 5. I think he's playing very fair out there and showing and giving enough room and not careening into others, like Leclerc, who I gave a 2.
Just the one driver.
Yeah.
He may be fair to all the other drivers, just not his teammate.
It's not his teammate. That's the one he's really got it out for.
That's the one that matters.
I don't know. He doesn't like Max too much.
No, he's not a big fan of Max either.
No, that's true. That is true.
But, honestly, you can kind of understand about Max.
Yes, the young Dutchman was a bit annoying out there today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Albon's a little too fair, and he's come a cropper to that, a little too trusting of other drivers.
Especially a 6-time world champion.
Right. So I definitely think that's something he needs to learn. When you make the move, you do not put yourself in a place where they can, make a move back on you. So
that's right.
you're going to make it. You got to max Verstappen on those passes. Don't give him an option to come back at you.
The Nico Rosberg clip, I totally got distracted because now as I think of that one shot where they shoot it and there's Nico on the screen, like, you go. What? I've totally lost any commentary because that was
Nico.
such a bizarre thing.
You see, I think it was my race review. I wrote that under the what the heck,
Yeah, it was so weird.
Like, dude, this is for the fans, and he managed to get himself on the fan cam in the Grand Prix. It was like
he's so excited.
Yeah, it was so, what the hell?
I can't say what the term that I would use, but anyway.
Will you tell us after we're done recording?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
see, the after dark portion of the podcast. But
yes, the below the belt mix.
That's right. But anyway, so that's what now I've lost any fairness. I mean, I think Paul had a similar, you kind of chuckled at that. Like, is fairness what we expect from drivers? Are they supposed to be fair towards one another?
Yes.
I don't know.
Really?
Can't be too fair because then you're too far on the other side, right? You don't want to just be like, oh, here, let me let you by.
Don't be a victim.
Right.
Be the aggressor.
Right. So, I don't know. Fairness. I mean, Leclerc is a nice one to pick on, right? I get that he's a 2. He hasn't quite been that fair. I don't know that Verstappen would be rated as particularly fair, but maybe that's one of his strengths, that he's not particularly fair. I don't know. I guess it depends on how you feel about being at the wrong end of a Verstappen move.
Yeah. You know who I think has the best balance of fairness, if you want to call it that, but tough, is Ricciardo. He fights so hard for every inch, but he doesn't take more than the inch that's there, right? But you don't particularly want to dice with Ricciardo because he's got a lot of tools in his box to get by you. So I think he's really kind of the perfect blend there where he can really, show you up pretty bad, but he's not going to do it just by punting you off the track.
Right. Yeah, because that's not fun. Getting punted off the track,
That's also a recording of Todd talking about Nico Rosberg.
It is. That was me when I was sitting there watching the race and seeing all these fans, and I was like, "Hey, it's Tim from Uruguay, and he's excited." And there's like, "Oh, there's Jessica from Essex. Woo, she's excited. Yeah, there's Nico Rosberg from Monaco. Are you effing kidding me?" Come on, this guy's a Formula One driver for crying out loud, and he horns his way in on. Oh man, don't get started.
That's great.
All right, we're done.
Nico is something.
Yes, that is
something. Yes,
that's right.
Yes, he is. All right. Let's see. Just a couple things. The one thing I will say, I didn't rate this or review this is the lack of fans.
Okay.
And I was doing on race weekends, I usually, the folks over at Talk Sport usually want me to come on and talk about Formula One, and I did before the last race. And they asked me, hey, how's this whole thing with the fans going? And then I didn't get into any thought. It just struck me, but I'll share it with you kind of what I thought. And I said, I will say that so far this season, the sport of F1 has shown up to the season. We've got the skeleton, the muscle, the brains, the skin, the lungs, all of that. But what we don't have there is the heart. And the heart is really the fans. And it's the fans, that passion and that adulation and that feedback. And those drivers crave that. The teams love that adulation and the victory, and it just amps up the overall passion and energy of a race weekend. And it's not just F1, it's NASCAR, IndyCar, any of these. Other was MotoGP, when Rossi climb on the fence and everybody's going crazy and all the Rossi, a kit and everything. And it's just that the heart of racing is gone, except for Paul's team. Because his team, quite honestly, it asked for the heart of racing.
That's right.
So Paul takes that passion and heart wherever his team goes.
Right.
But everywhere else in racing, it's missing, and that's
he carries it in a briefcase.
Yeah,
Pulp Fiction.
He's got it actually in
right next to my Nico Rosberg little picture from his high school.
Paul carries it in a Yeti.
Yes.
On ice.
Heart.
You know what they could do, just to bring that back? What you're missing, Todd, is just get a bunch of computer screens on each chair.
There you go.
And just show Nico Rosberg going,
Yeah.
That's it.
It's problem
Come on,
solved.
let's everybody do a Nico Rosberg. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yay!
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I think that. I mean,
Yay, RTL, hire me.
and especially at the end, right? Because that's where, if you're watching on TV, that's where you see them, right? And I imagine that has to be where the drivers notice, right?
Yeah,
like that you,
totally.
you know, that it is something missing from the celebration, and you are missing, you know, the fans rushing out into, you know, onto the track and, you know, cheering on their drivers and, you know, cheering for
You know what's kind of cool though? I mean, it's, you know, obviously there's different levels and you work through those levels to get to be a professional, and then you get to drive in big races in front of crowds and everything. And I remember that progression, and it was just, you know, first time I did an IMSA race at Miami Grand Prix and there's just stands full of people. I'm like, this is like the greatest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
But then, you know, you think back to, you know, when you started off driving your first ever race, and there's, you know, there's your grandmother and, you know, someone's cousin in the stands, and that's it, right? And it's just about you internally going on a racetrack. And same thing when I was watching the football, the EPL, you know, I was watching some of those games where they superimposed the sound of the crowd. I don't know if any of you watched those, but then I watched another game where all you could hear was the touchline. And then it reminded me of, you know, going to the old local games, and all you can hear is, oh, go on, Bob, go wide, go wide.
Right.
There was something kind of pure to that as well, quite honestly.
Yeah.
But you don't get that pureness when you see the little robot coming down with the trophy, though.
Ted Kravitz isn't enough of a fan for you with his pirate spyglass.
No. So I think there is something internally for the people participating to still enjoy it to that degree, but to be in front of a bunch of crowd and the tifosi and everything, that is Formula One, isn't it? The manicness, the support, just I'm going to support this team for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, look at Grace, for instance. You know, the last surviving McLaren fan for a while there. I think.
That's right.
He's the only McLaren fan that would admit it.
That's right.
But it's that whole energy.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you have to do when you show down the video, you have to do the whole stop-start video bit, you know, because that was the only effect they had back then.
Right.
That
was cutting edge.
That was cutting edge. Yeah. That was the two faces going like this.
Yeah.
I think the only place, I mean, watching from TV, I just miss the fans at basketball games because they drown out the squeakiness of the shoes, which now it's just louder how squeaky their shoes are, and I can't believe somebody hasn't figured out that technology.
God. Think about that. Think about Formula E without fans.
Oh my God, right? Like then that's...
You're right.
The passion that is. The
fake passion. That is squealing Michelins.
Yeah, they have been piping in to Formula E, so without the crowd, they can't even fake that one.
I just like that at baseball, there's just like a guy that has a boo button, right? Like he does all the crowd noises. I totally would never stop. I'd be like, boo! Look, Paul Charsley's up, boo, boo! Like it wouldn't matter. I just think that would be the greatest joy, would just to be booing people, even if they don't deserve it, even if they're your guy. Like Gracie's on your team, I don't care, boo!
Oh, Grace, tell me. I didn't watch the game. Tell me that dude hit the boo button when Lord Fauci threw the throw-out ball over the first base.
He
had to hit the boo.
I will say though, they had him do an interview with of course I can't think of the national, right? Because he's a big Nationals fan. And he was like the giddiest fanboy, and it was super cute.
Bet.
He's like, this guy that's just like, oh, I'm talking to a baseball player. Oh, look how cute this is. But yeah, his pitch it should have been booed. It was not good.
It was just outside.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see. Update. I mentioned the Americas are out. Formula One will not be coming to the Americas.
I had to cancel my hotel room today.
Yeah, Canada, Austin, or Brazil, not happening in 2020. They did sign Portimao, Nürburgring, and Imola. Also, before we get into the words, there's still the rumors of Vettel, Perez, Stroll, Aston Martin, Alfa Romeo, all that's still going on. Rumors about Vettel possibly taking Perez's seat at Aston Martin.
Vettel to go to Renault, because I want Alonso and Vettel together at Renault. That'd be the messiest combination ever.
That would be awesome.
And by awesome, I mean terrible. I'm just here for the messiness. That would be like the craziest combination of teams ever.
That
Talk about not fairness, right, or whatever.
But you know what? They both come from Ferrari as failures, so they're.
You're right. Maybe they bond over the same ex-girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Oh, she did that to you too? Oh, me too. Oh, okay.
Exactly, really. That's how she treats.
That's another angle.
Alonso would be like, yes. So I think it's good. So
really,
anyway,
the key down the side of the car, yeah.
Yes. They go by keying the Ferrari on the grid, you know? That'd be great.
You don't break up with me!
Let's see. So keep your eye on that. A lot of rumors around that. All right, let's give away some awards. First award of the podcast, Post of the Week. All right, the post this week goes to Worthless Opinion on Renault's new protest. Remember that they entered a second protest after what was the last race we just watched? The Hungary. And Worthless Opinion said this. Also, why does F1 have this rule? The best thing they could do to fill grids is let big teams dump last year's junk on lesser teams. It's cheaper for the lesser team to put the car together and would take far less staff to get it around the track, adjusted right, and making the right sounds. The big teams recovers a bunch of development money by selling it. MotoGP does this to great effect, and we can actually see who's a great pilot because they can embrace the factory with last year's crap on occasion. Never mind whether the pink pigs broke the rule. Why in the world is there this rule?
Great question.
It is a good question.
Go ahead, Grace.
Go, Grace.
Why don't you unpack this, Grace? I don't know why. Why is there any rules in Formula One? Everybody just do whatever the hell you want.
Because evidently the DNA of Formula One is to build your own car and be a constructor, although the DNA of Formula One is not that.
Right. So,
At least for the first 35 years of Formula One, that wasn't the case.
That's right.
I just think Formula One needs to come home. Just admit that we're in this situation and just have, customer cars or just, you know what I mean? Like just.
Frank won't stand for it.
Well, at this point, Frank's not going to be in the sport much longer. So I think that they just need to, instead of holding so fast to this, like everybody must be a constructor. Well, you're not going to have a season left. You're not going to have teams. And that's just not the reality of it. So just just come home, right? Admit it.
I know. I agree. And with this reduced, they could buy these things just like Frank got started in Formula One using a March chassis back in the day, and it all worked. And then you could, even with these reduced, they could go in and they could do tests. But you know how they are about it.
So it's a test you're looking for. We don't do tests.
Sure you don't. They never do tests. Not many real Ds either. Oh, conversation with your grandmother's shade in a darkened room, the odd love potion or two, but comes a doubter. Why, then it's the wrong day. The planets are not in line. The entrails are not favorable. We don't do tests.
See?
Well,
and the podcast is over now.
There you go. Yes. Sorry, your time on Zoom has ended.
You're over.
Your meeting has ended. So anyway,
thank you.
I agree.
Please fill out the survey.
All right. If anyone can tell me what movie that's from, it's one of the movies I enjoyed when I was a youngster. I loved that movie when I was a youngster, and that's one of my favorite quotes in the movies.
It wasn't Caligula, I know that.
No. No, Paul. Over there watching smut.
I liked 7-year-old Todd watching Caligula, though. What kind of parents did you have, right? Come on.
He didn't say 7. He says he's a young man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I was a big Malcolm McDowell fan. What can I say?
10 better? I don't think so.
It's crazy. All right. Next word is, well, it's Grace's favorite because it is the Lewis Hamilton Fashion Award.
Lewis Hamilton, there's no stopping him.
Get in there, Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton,
look at Paul.
There's no stopping him.
Get in there, Lewis.
All right. Paul is not impressed.
Never. He never is.
No. I've been listening to that ditty.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
I just want to thank the dude. I don't even know who wrote that song and who did it, but thanks, because
Great.
it's been hours of by ourselves enjoyment. Let's see here then. For those of you watching the podcast, you will be able to see our Fashion Award winner, which is here now. Huh?
It's
Paul,
topless.
Explain to us what we're looking at. What happened here?
Well, we're looking at a very high-end McLaren street car from the center line with a lot of pieces missing and the ground. The front end.
The whole front end is ratchet strapped on.
Yes,
how would you rate the adeptness of this driver?
Yes, adeptness, I would give him a 1. Because you just don't need to do that on the street, and certainly not in a car with that kind of capabilities. So whoever did it obviously had no business
There
being
was
on
only
road, let alone on a racetrack.
Yeah, for sure.
Not good enough, damn it! Not good enough.
This was only 20 of these cars made, Senna LMs, crashed in Monaco. Grace, tell us who, pray tell, could have access to one of only 20 McLarens, and who could buy that, have access to that, and crash it in Monaco. And do it probably wearing a pair of jorts.
Of course.
White shorts.
Yes.
He's German.
9? Yes.
Ah, yes. He's no longer friends with Fernando Alonso. 1. Adrian Sutil.
He's back.
Adrian Sutil? That's him.
The Sutil. Still driving just like he always did.
Isn't that brutal? That car is messed
Oh, man.
up.
That is not going to be fixed quickly or affordably.
No.
Nope.
That's going to be expensive. It isn't papaya orange, though.
Yeah. I guess he made a lot of money driving back for Force India back then to be able to afford one of those still.
I was reading that story, Paul, and I was thinking the same thing. I thought, this guy hadn't been in Formula One in quite a while. How much money did he make?
That's assuming, some really rich guy didn't say, "Oh man, I let a real Formula One driver go test drive my car. He's going to be back in just a minute."
Right.
Well, he wasn't spending it on shorts, so.
Yes, true.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he kept when it got too frayed, he just cut them shorter. That's what I did.
And eventually it was going to be like the NBA in the 90s, right?
No, it's like Adrian Sutil and his Daisy Dukes.
Yeah.
Right.
He's Bo Derek on the beach.
Right.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy. All right.
All right.
Well, the next award, we've recently renamed it because it seemed fitting. We're now calling it the Gunther Steiner Bravado Award. Yes.
This
All
award,
right.
Paul approves of this award.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
I'm still back on Suda wearing Daisy Dukes. That was like not a. I'm gonna focus on Nico Rosberg and like cleanse my brain, right? Like.
Yeah, there's a part of that you wouldn't want to see.
Even
That's
Fisher
almost...
Keller just tore it up on the streets of South France.
That's right.
Yeah, that's almost like Flavio and Mancini.
Yeah, why do you have to go there?
That's just not good.
No.
All right, bravado this week goes to one Toto Wolff.
Get down.
Yep. He was saying that you shouldn't be blaming Mercedes for their dominance. So, as you know, Mercedes is beating the heads in of the entire grid this season so far, dominating this season like crazy, and the last 6 seasons, I might add, like crazy. And he says, hey, whether it's us, whether it's Red Bull in the 2010 years, or whether it was Ferrari in the early 2000s, it's something that is always a bit odd for the championship. But it's not up to the team that has made steps to be seen as responsible for the predictability of the championship, end quote.
I don't have a problem with that.
There you go.
I agree with Charsley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. Everybody's fine.
I give it
with
a
that.
5.
All right, fair enough.
Number 1 with the bullet.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough.
Little Susie called in, wanted to.
First time, long time.
Little Susie. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. All right.
Very good.
Mailbag.
You've got mail.
All right.
I didn't get that one.
This one comes to us from Yard Adams.
Okay.
And Yard Adams says,
no.
greetings from Los Angeles. Woo!
All right.
Los Angeles.
What the hell?
He says, Dear Todd and Grace, I got into F1. Paul, you're out of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently. And Paul's gone. Says, Dear Todd and Grace.
Sorry, I think I forgot my wallet somewhere.
I'm just waiting for the laptop to like pull behind it like Foghorn Leghorn or something. Like, oh, I forgot I was attached to the laptop.
Good times.
He says, Dear Todd and Grace, I got into F1 in 2017. It's the first sport I've ever been invested in. I'm a Ferrari fan, a Sebastian Vettel fan, and believe it or not, a Pierre Gasly fan. Yeah. My question for you two is, how does one deal with disappointment in F1 and sports? Love the podcast. Keep it the word. Yard Adams, that's a great question. And everyone knows I'm a Ferrari fan and I really like Seb Vettel. And I've ridden with him, 2 or 3 times now. He's a great guy. And it is hard being a Ferrari fan and certainly being a fan of, I like Charles Leclerc too, but
Cry me a river.
It's tough.
I'm really a McLaren fan. Don't give me this. Oh, it's so hard.
No, it's harder. It's harder because nobody expects McLaren to win every race, Grace.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
I just think, oh, wow. Oh, it's so hard being a Ferrari fan. That one season when things don't go our way because everybody's stacked in our favor, maybe things don't go so well.
Not easy. No, yeah, if you wanted suffering, a McLaren since 1999.
Right.
That's a long drought, and it's been a downward spiral.
Yeah, I remember the Kimi Räikkönen years. They weren't good.
Yeah, I know. They should have won, but that was tough. And being a Ferrari fan now is not easy to take that.
No, right.
That's difficult. But Paul, how do you deal with disappointment? Because Paul's a little different. Paul isn't so much
in many ways.
Paul,
What do you mean by that?
Paul marches to his own drum.
Works independently. 5.
Yes.
Paul picks his scabs. He doesn't play well with others. He smells
I don't need anyone to evaluate me.
So anyway, Paul doesn't. Unlike you're a McLaren fan. I've always been a Ferrari fan. Yeah. Paul's not that. Paul is a driver fan. And teams can come and go. He likes some teams for sure. But, yeah. Paul, how do you deal with that? Because you're more focused on the driver than you are necessarily the success of any one team.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously at the end of any weekend, there's only one winner, right? But for me, there's many victories going on down through the paddock. And, like for Grace, it was a victorious year last year. Her team had a resurgence. So you judge on where your person was or team was and what they achieved that weekend, and did they overachieve? Did they, those are the little small victories that make you excited. I mean, I was a big Riccardo Patrese fan. He won races, but he never won a world championship. No one ever judged him as, being anything great, although he raced in many Grand Prix for many years. He had a fantastic career. But it was just, Patrese beat Mansell that day, or this and that. So, and even, from my side on being, in a race team ourselves, there are victories we see, even though we may not be on the podium that week. Did we make a big gain? Did we, that's what you grab hold of, is something positive out of a weekend, which is different from a lot of other sports, because you either win or lose, right?
It is, and to that point, Paul, a good example might be when you think of Schumacher went to Ferrari in '96. It's a long. You got to think long game, Yard. You got to think about the long game gains that these teams make. So he gets there at '96. They get pummeled '97, '98, '99, but they work and they get better and better and better. And come 2000, they start reaching dominance. And then from 2000 to 2004, they're awesome. But you also saw that with Red Bull. Red Bull acquires Jaguar. Took them about 6 years to get that program to where they were with Vettel, won 4 championships in a row. Then Mercedes comes in, buys Braun in 2010-ish, right? It brings Rosberg, Schumacher back out of retirement, struggles quite a bit mid-plaque, racing against Force India. It takes them a little while, and then finally they get the hybrid. They get that ushered into Formula One, and they start dominating. And so with Formula One, it's a long game, you know? And that's how you kind of have to look at that, and those victories stack up. If you're, to Paul's point, I think it's a brilliant point, on a game of football, a game of basketball, or baseball, or soccer, football, you know, a team wins, team loses, right? And you may have some dominant teams.
I don't think it's quite like that in other sports.
No, you've got domination in that. You got like Manchester
You do,
United,
but it's not.
or...
I mean, so I'm a Wizards fan. We aren't really good. None of the, the teams.
Yeah, you're a young team. You're rebuilding, Grace.
Right, but that doesn't mean that you don't watch the games and there isn't something to see and there isn't something, It's not just a win or lose.
No,
right?
no. I'm agreeing with that.
Okay.
It's the same thing. Look, Paul and I in the Blues, St. Louis Blues.
Right.
They've been a 500 team as long as I've been a fan until they finally got around to winning the Stanley Cup. The Chiefs, my Chiefs, Kansas City Chiefs.
Nobody will beat them now, so just enjoy it, right?
Woot woot.
You got them for life, so
yeah. So it's long game. You got to look at it that way. I hope I'm raising you right, Paul.
I think the answer is what it is in every sport: alcohol. And depending on what time the race is on where you live, is what kind of alcohol you use to cope with the situation.
Wow.
It's on a little early, so
Where's my Foster Brooks soundbite?
Grace is going to be leading our meeting tonight.
That's right. That's why I prefer to do all performance evaluation. A little tipsy.
So enough of this.
I love you, freaking guys.
Enough of this clean business. I got some. Anyone for some Jack Daniels?
Yeah. God damn that Ron Dennis. Yeah.
So that's how it is at Grace's house.
That's me. 4 laps in, right? You gotta be ready that pregame.
Right.
No, but I think you're right, and I think you do take away, the positives and the small changes, and what, and it's in Formula One, what tracks your teams are going to do. Your team is going to do well, so you kind of like, as a McLaren fan, you wait for Hungary and you pretend like that's the best, that's going to be every race, and it's not. It's just going to be Hungary where McLaren does well, or something like that. So you kind of take those, or Australia as a one-off or something like that, and you celebrate those moments when you're not last, or you finish the race, or you're in the points. So
right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like for Williams, a Williams fan, a victory is getting a point, right?
Absolutely. I think
and that just shows progress, and that's what you hold on to. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. Thanks for listening, and a huge thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. If you have ever thought about supporting the podcast, that's an easy way to do it. Go to our website, theparcfermé.com. On the right-hand side, it says support us by Patreon, and you click on that, and you can go to Patreon, look up the Parc Fermé, support us there. You can do that as little as $1 a month. If you like the podcast, be sure to go over to iTunes and give us some love. Give us a good rating over at iTunes. That would appreciate that as well. And also, if you like the podcast, tell a friend about it. Share it. Get on social media. Get on there and with Lewis and folks and Nico Rosberg. Get on there and spread the love. And that's an easy way to help out. You can also go to our website, follow the link, buy a shirt, and that would help us out as well. So we'd appreciate
some
that.
swag.
Buy some swag is always good. See, Grace has got her Parc Fermé swag on, and so that's always.
I got my Parc Fermé underoos on, but
yes,
I'm not going to show them off.
No.
Again, that's the after dark portion of the podcast.
Right. So be sure to do that. It's awesome having you guys on doing a employee review mid-season.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Is it mid-season? We're only 3 races in, so it's
well,
not
it's
even
the start of my season next week, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, you should be. Where are you going, Paul?
Well, the restart of our season. I'm going to Elkhart Lake. The Heart of Racing Aston Martin is back in action for round 4 of the IMSA Championship at this point. So really excited to be heading
turn
back
on
there.
The IMSA race at Elkhart next week, and that's Paul's team.
Yep, be on noon on NBC, I think, Eastern time. So it's an early race. early race.
Yeah, and then that way you'll see Paul get interviewed.
Oh my God.
I recommend with a noon race like a hard lemonade or a hard seltzer.
This is the whole new podcast.
This yeah. How to
You
get
use all the
drunk
rest of
in
your
race.
day. You need something that's going to be a little rehydrating while you're doing it. So,
You are a
know.
professional, Grace.
She's professional. She rose above it.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Until
anyway,
she passes out.
that's right. All
That
right.
actually should be my slogan. That's pretty good. Professional until she passes out.
I'm
Perfect.
gonna have to start a sister podcast that's all AA centered podcast about how to get off the 12 steps of.
That's right.
All right. Well, until next week when we do it all over again. This is Todd, aka Negative Camper, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.